a pivotal moment for me was realizing that it's just like going out and working out for the first time, right? To realize that it's a creative muscle that you're working on and that you may not have it all figured out in the beginning, right? The first time you go to the gym, you don't know what equipment's there. You feel awkward. There are people there who've been there for a long time, look a lot bigger than you, know what they're doing. And that kind of creates this kind of sense of insecurity, and you don't feel like you're in place. But as you go, or you get a trainer, right? You either get a trainer, you learn things online, you start developing the skills and you start practicing. That's when you really come into your own. That's when you start building muscle and it starts feeling natural. So for me, a lot of things that I see with all content creators is the fact that they overthink. They overcomplicate what they're doing, and we put too much time and effort we put too much value into one piece of content, right? Sure. I've realized that also people don't care, or maybe that your target audience, you don't even know you're not even, your circle of friends and influences aren't even your target audience. If I start talking about photography today, how many of the people that I know will be interested in the content that I'm making? I have to start creating content so that my niche can find me. I have to know who my target audience is and what value I want to provide, and then start flexing the creative muscle in order to be comfortable, in order to get eyeballs on my content. So I think that's been one of the biggest realizations for me, is that you just got to create and you got to keep going at it. And as you start building a portfolio, you start building a database, you start building a portfolio of the content that you create. That's when you can really start having people find what you're doing interesting and find your audience. If you want to start creating content, stop thinking that you're creating content for someone and it needs to be posted. Start creating content just because you want to experiment with something with no idea of whether or not you're going to share it, right? It takes that scary part out of it, where you're like, people are going to judge me. So if you want, I would suggest people to just start creating content for themselves, and then they'll start discovering what really resonates with them. And oftentimes they'll just find that they're not bad, right? They'll be like, oh, this isn't as difficult as I thought. It's just that they don't take the action. My Instagram page is not about really connecting with my friends, to be honest. Like, I have select people and I go on specifically to interact with my friends' content. But otherwise, I'm creating an incubation and an echo chamber of the things that I want to see, the things that I want to learn, and looking at everything from, would be cool. Yeah. Like, what are you inspired by yourself? What kind of content sticks out to you? When you see those things, you can be like, okay, that's when you help hone into the kind of things that you want to make. And it'll never turn out the same, even despite how many bars I created or how much inspiration I took from other artists and creators. Your end product is going to be uniquely your own. It's too hard to just straight up copy paste, because your unique personality and your experiences will tie into what you're creating, which gives you your unique, authentic voice. I think whenever you're creating content or whenever you're working with clients, you're building a relationship essentially. And that relationship is something that, is the most valuable asset that you have. Who you're developing your audience, having your audience trust you and what you're bringing to them, the value that you bring. And when you do that, you've basically created a friend and a subscriber for life.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. Yeah.
Being a content creator certainly does also have its own challenges. Can you share with us a particular obstacle that you've faced in your career and how you overcame it?
Particular obstacle for me has just been showing up. Showing up consistently, understanding that it's a development process for me, to just say that what I do by showing up, I'm able to execute more often and do and be more of who I want to be. So my biggest obstacle, like I mentioned, was understanding who I am, getting more confident in the content creation process. And it can't happen by imagining it. It can only happen by executing. Mm-hmm. So by showing up, I'm being able to develop it. And it does get easier. I started video journaling so that I could create content. I started video journaling so I could get comfortable on camera. Now it's wildly influenced my life. Just from day-to-day conversations. To be able to sit here on this podcast with you only came through that development process. So it's understanding what your strengths are and playing to those, and then understanding what your weaknesses are, either avoiding those weaknesses or developing and devoting yourself to making them your strengths. And that's something that I realize as well, is like, what do I need to put in place to be able to create the content that I want to create. So it's never an easy process because you have professional development is personal development. And that's what people forget. By being able to develop yourself professionally, you're literally developing yourself personally.
Absolutely.
So now I can create content. I can have better relationships with people. I can share my message better with an audience. I can relate better. And that's what's going to make it easier. But if I didn't put the time in to develop my craft, then my craft would be dead. Like it should be a dream that is not being realized instead of a dream that's in the process of realization.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. I think it's important that people understand that there are always kind of setbacks or challenges or feelings, about the process that can be difficult.
And we all feel like imposters. Another thing that I realize is that everyone starts from scratch. You know what I mean? Nobody has it easy. No, you may be a little bit more talented, but that professional, that skill development comes through hours of practice. Mm-hmm. And that's what I've also realized is that you don't have to wait until you know it all to start sharing. Like I said, understand that what your experiences and the value that you've already attained is needed by somebody else. And that's who you're creating content for. You're not creating content for that person who's like, he didn't say that right. Or I know more than him. You're creating for that person who needs to hear what you have to say. And that's been a big perspective shift for me as well, is to just understand that there's someone out there who needs to hear it. And someone once told me that by not sharing your message, you're being selfish because someone needs to hear it. Yeah. And that's been a huge perspective shift to me. It's just understanding that you have to commit for the long term to say that, okay, this isn't going to happen overnight. This is a 4 or 5 year development process, and it may take you in a different direction later on, but that development is going to stick with you forever. And then secondly, know that your audience is, you're actually finding your audience. You're in the process of finding your audience. And it's people who are 2-3 steps behind you. It's you 5 years ago. And when you understand that, you'll realize that you have a lot of experience that's worthwhile in sharing. Just put whatever you're learning on the shelf and share. Be honest about the fact that you don't have it all figured out, but if I can share something that's relatable, that adds value to your life, it doesn't matter if I just learned it today. I can just be like, hey, this is what I learned today. Let me share this with you. You're still going to be appreciative of it. You're still going to draw value from it.
For sure. And maybe even more if it happens to be one of your friends, they're already trusting you, and then to see that you're learning, that's going to inspire them as well. Mm-hmm. That's great.
I think there's a humility in that too that's very attractive, right? Mm-hmm. It's like, I don't know everything. I just learned this, but I feel like it's like my duty or my honor to like share this piece of knowledge or whatever it is with you, because I feel like it could make your life better too, or something. Like there's just this humility there that's really nice.
Content creation is a game, right? And that's what we need to understand, is that like it's a constant game. It's a lot of ebb and flows. We know how these social media platforms change their algorithms and everything that they do on a dime. So you got to be keyed in.
Sure.
And that, I think the key in process is a lot about finding the people who are seasoned and just having an eye for it. Be like, oh, that's new. How do I do that? How do I incorporate this into my content right now? Because that trend may not be here to stay, but it's going viral right now. It's the move. AI has the ability to superpower anyone on your team. So depending on who they are, depending whether they're in the art department or in the copywriting department, it's not cheating. It's utilizing what's available to you to be able to produce more and faster in a more streamlined fashion. So AI is a topic that I think everyone's just there. It's hard to wrap your mind around because it's moving faster than the speed of light, it feels like. So for me, it's like dedicating time to study what's happening out there.
Good.
And I mean, if you're an agency or you have that, it's again, like I said, it's keeping an eye on the ground. It's seeing what other people are doing and be like, okay, I need to be able to incorporate this as well. It's something that we all need to learn, because the people who don't start incorporating AI are going to get left in the dirt in any field, anywhere.
Absolutely.
Because it's uplifting and uprooting the fabric of how we used to do everything.
Yes.
So understanding how to incorporate it into your creation process, into your product, is something you got to do. And that's what's going to get you ahead of the curve. I think there's going to be huge disparity between the people who get AI and are utilizing it to the people who don't know. Like imagine when computers first came into place, like, you know, it took
Sure.
a while, but the people who got computers, they're the Bill Gates. They're, you know, they're the ones with huge businesses or like Amazon.
Sure.
Far and in between. Not everyone's Amazon, but with AI, it's going to be exponential. The gap.
Like nothing
created.
we've seen before in terms of just how fast. I mean, it was October that it really hit, you know, it seems like in terms of the collective consciousness. And now you can't go anywhere without seeing it, hearing it. And I think to embrace it and be open to it is important.